Everyone, welcome back to Kevin Reviews, and it's the beginning of February, and it's also Groundhog Day again. And I just recently rewatched Groundhog Day again. So this is by Columbia Pictures, and it's directed and written by Harold Ramis. It's also written by Danny Rubin. Cast includes Bill Murray, Andie MacDowell, uh, Chris Elliott, Stephen Tobolowsky. I'm probably butchered that name. I apologize, Stephen. And Brian Doyle-Murray, who happens to be the older brother of Bill Murray. So, what can I say about Groundhog Day? I mean, for one, it was in 2006. It was selected to be to be preserved in the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress. So, um, applause for that. And but we I think, majority of us, whatever movie involves having to relive the same day over and over again, everyone thinks, oh, it's Groundhog Day. And it's a classic for that reason. I don't know if it's exactly the first time that it's been done before. Um, I mean, but many people associate Groundhog Day whenever a movie that does that same premise, like Edge of Tomorrow or Happy Death Day. Even certain Christmas film or moments like Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas, where Huey, Dewey, and Louie relived Christmas every day, as well as in TV in the cartoon, Timmy Turner from The Fairly Odd Parents relives the same day over and over again because he wished for it, which Christmas Day, I'm sorry. And yeah, so it's been done to death, which and but and everyone associates that with Groundhog Day, and that's the one. And aside from Puxatawny, who celebrate their Groundhog Day, and I won't go into detail because I don't know a ton about Groundhog Day myself. But even if you didn't, you know that this is well known for be the only film that focuses on Groundhog Day, and we almost watch it every year. Not always, but I'm sure many of you don't care about Groundhog Day. It seems really silly. But granted, we've later years have come up with sillier days to celebrate stuff. I mean, Pi Day, for example. Um, but it's all fun. So, but I remember my dad showing me this, and it made me laugh. It was very charming. It had a interesting and great premise. Um, and yeah, it's one of I think this is one of my favorites, or is my all-time favorite Bill Murray movie. For that reason, I know I've reviewed a Harold Ramis movie where he wasn't director. He wrote it, Caddyshack, that also had Bill Murray in it. That if you haven't seen that, I'll likely put it at the end of the video. But I remember not being a fan of that one. But if you ask me what my favorite Bill Murray movie is, this is it. I would say so. Um, Now, that being said, it is one of those movies I think nowadays I do really enjoy it, but much like Christmas Story, I've seen it so many times, to the point where I could just have it on as background noise or just choose not to watch it, in general. And yes, because I saw this by myself, comedy isn't as prominent or as laugh out loud funny as it was when the first day I saw it and with my dad. So, but still, it doesn't. I don't think it harms the movie in any way. It's just kind of, you know, because I've seen this so many times, it does fall into that category. Still, you know, I do really like this movie overall. Um, but in any case, why don't we get into my review of Groundhog Day? So I think many people know the story of Groundhog Day already, but um, in any case anyone doesn't, the story is Phil Connors, played by Bill Murray, is a meteorologist, a weatherman, but he's also a jerk, egotistical, and often called a prima donna, specifically from his cameraman, Larry, played by Chris Elliott. But he has to go to Puxatawny, Philadelphia, to film for the Groundhog Day Festival. And it's a real life festival that happens every year. Um, but in any case, he, Larry, and his producer, Rita, played by Andie MacDowell, are going to the ceremony. They're pretty much by the numbers and whatnot. Phil obviously is not a fan of doing it. He's often talked about wanting to leave the studio so he can go on to better things, and also the fact that his name happens to be associated with the groundhog named Phil. So yeah, he's not happy about it, but whatever. Until he's about to leave, until unfortunately a blizzard comes in. That unexpected blizzard happens that traps him in Puxatawny. But then he wakes up to find that it's Groundhog Day again, and he's reliving the same day over and over again in this seemingly never-ending loop. And it's up to Phil Connors to figure out how he could get out of this loop. Um, you know, and over time we see, him going through the motions, because, and that's the thing, the film also does emulate or model it based off, and I have to look at this, by Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of death, or grief. So I mean, we got denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And in Phil, we do see Phil Connors go through all those motions. um, Despite it being a charming, quirky comedy, this is pretty dark. And like I said, I probably jumped ahead a little bit, but I rewatched it. It's still a great movie. I would still recommend this to everybody. But in any case, we do see him go through these stages in interesting ways, though not exactly like those ways. It's different because it's like it begs the question: what would we do in Phil Connor's situation? And it's interesting to explore. Would we do, um, and what exactly is happening? And actually, how long he's been trapped in this never-ending cycle where he's able to predict everything that's happening, because keeps reliving it. He knows what's going to happen. Sometimes presenting shock to people. Um, First of all, the characters. Bill Murray is still great as Phil Connors. You don't you. It's obviously a guy you love and you love to hate, but you see his struggle. You see him eventually kind of turning himself around, or you see a bit of yourself in Phil Connor's situation, like what we would do ultimately. Not everyone, but we probably would do, because we keep reliving the same day over. We would relive the same day over and over again, like with no consequence. It's interesting to explore. The other characters, Rita is very charming. Not charming, uh, great personality. Um, kind, generous, is a very likable character, and is often is often even later on the film becomes the love interest for Phil, and how they approach that part is really great. It's really done very well. As for other characters, there's not a ton. I mean, Larry is a bit of a comedy, even a side comedy relief. He has some great moments. Um, Brian Doyle-Murray doesn't have a huge role in the film. The only one that is often very funny, and I still laugh at to this day, is Stephen Tobolowsky as Ned Ryerson, and he's always funny, putting in that putting like 110% into his performance of this, you know, enthusiastic, enthusiastic life insurance salesman who, you know, and and the way the dialogue, the writing especially is also very good. The way it's shot is also very good. There's not much to it. It seems average and ordinary, but there's like even a scene where you see the image of the clock, 5:59, and it just like it's so sudden, like you feel the weight when it hits 6 o'clock, and you feel like, oh god, this is absolute torture that Phil is going through, and that's throughout the entire movie, even to the point where you hear Sonny and Cher's "I Got You, Babe." It's a great song, but even if you had to listen to that every morning, it is kind of torture. It's it is a torturous kind of feel. It seems great at first, but at first glance for Phil Connor's situation, but ultimately it doesn't work out. I will warn people: this is a pretty dark movie, despite its kind of chipper comedic attitude. It is a dark yet kind of funny movie. How he approaches it later on in the film. Um, it's I can't go into much detail because otherwise I think YouTube would likely, um, you know, age restrict it heavily. But yeah, regardless, it is a very dark movie. I wouldn't recommend it for even younger kids to see it because there's not inherently a lot of things bad that for kids, but um, it does go into dark, heavy themes and overall. But it's still in a way funny in its own right. But it's not funny of the act, but it's funny in the way the film is presenting it. But yeah, but there's a lot of great moments. I mean, I even looked up some trivia because I do want to mention some certain things like Bill Murray had to get some shots when holding the groundhog. Uh, this was not filmed in Puxatawny; it was filmed in Woodstock, Illinois, and Tom Hanks was once considered for the role as Phil Connors, but Harold Ramis thought maybe he was too nice. And granted, we had a movie similar to with Tom Hanks where he was a man called Otto. I haven't seen it before, but he's supposed to play this cantankerous, jerky character. Um, but I don't know. I think oftentimes I love Tom Hanks as an actor. I think he would have been a great for the role. But I think Bill Murray was perfect for the role overall. Um, let's see. That's about it for trivia, unfortunately. But there's definitely a lot of great things. The way how it's shot, how it keeps it vague exactly how long Phil Connors has been reliving the same day over and over again. Um, but I don't know. There's also like times where Phil Connors learns certain things about um like he helps an older man who unfortunately from that day, I might give away a little spoiler here, but he passes away, and yet he tries to do everything to help him, but something that's even he's under the situation that he's under, he's out of his control. It's something unfortunately we have to learn even. And I don't know. I don't really have a lot to bad to say, and I feel like this is going to be a very short review. Um, I do want to pause for a moment though. So yeah, sorry about that time constraint for me at this point. Maybe it'll get better later on, but yeah, I can't really think of anything wrong with the film. There are, like I said, it is one I would recommend with an audience, especially. Um, and I mean, I certainly would enjoy it, even despite me seeing this film over and over again. I would see this with an audience if I could, um, just for the comedy. But the charm of the characters, the the premise alone, at least is one of those comedic films I could watch every now and then. Because if it was flat out comedy, straight up, then it it wouldn't interest me that much, or not make me come back, because that it would have to get me laughing. But at least this one bounces it out with good enough drama, great heavy moments, um, especially moment where uh, with later in the film with Phil and Rita. Um, but I like how it's done. It's shot like multiple times. Like but we don't, you know, I'm sure like when we see Phil trying to, you know, impress Rita, you know, trying to remember all this information, and we see similar shots on shot, you know, of how it's done, but it's different. So it's like rewatching the same thing in terms of editing. It looks like we're rewatching the same thing, but it's slightly different every time. And that's great. That's a great way to edit things. You know, we don't have to go through the whole motions of the stuff again. Um, but yeah, uh, I guess if there's one thing that does bother me, because if he was stuck um, in Groundhog Day, you know, reliving the same day in Groundhog Day, I mean, wasn't there a consideration where he could, like, say, s- the next morning take a car and try to drive out of Puxatony and go, you know, go someplace that, you know, that wasn't Puxatony? Like he leaves his crewmen there, but I mean, it's like maybe he thought, maybe there was a thought of like, you know, if this town's holding him hostage, it's like he wants to get away from this town. Um, I don't know. I think that would have been interesting to explore, at least have a detail, but maybe because of time constraints and you know, whatnot, they couldn't do that. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of interesting ideas in this, to explore, that heavily influence other films later. So yeah, you know, this is kind of a short review, I think. I would still give this 5 stars. It's my favorite Bill Murray movie. I would watch it every year, even if it's background noise. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Groundhog Day? Let's mention in the comments below, like or dislike the review if you wish, and feel free to subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next review. Bye.